Hey guys, welcome to You the Boss podcast, episode 47. I'm your host, Pam, and today we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. I've named this episode Imposter Syndrome Part 2 because we did an episode on imposter syndrome a while back. It's episode 15. In that episode, we defined imposter syndrome and how it shows up and a little bit of how to be able to combat it. So if you haven't already checked that episode out, definitely do so. In this episode, we're going to talk about how perfectionism plays a role in imposter syndrome and just being able to kind of combat some of that and being able to erase those feelings of feeling like a fraud. So we've already experienced imposter syndrome. You may feel it less some days, but it still comes and it still goes. And maybe you're at a speaking engagement and it pops into your head, someone stops you in your tracks and with a question and it pops into your head and you're immediately like, this is why I feel like a fraud, because someone who is actually doing this work, someone who is actually a speaker is not getting, stopped in their tracks. They're not stumbling on their words. They're not, facing this kind of situation. You have these thoughts like maybe you're just not good enough, or maybe you're holding yourself back just from that moment of, again, stumbling on the words, or feeling like you're stuck in a question that someone asked you. And you think that because this other person, or this image of this perfect person of what it is that you're doing looks, you're allowing it to stop you, to maybe almost keep you too small. Like I mentioned last week, perfectionism. See, I messed up there. Perfectionism really causes a dent in your confidence and the skills that you do have. So, why don't we take a few minutes and celebrate our wins? We don't realize a lot of the time whenever we've been doing something for a while just how skilled we are. And maybe you're not feeling as confident in what it is that you're doing, or you feel like your skills have gotten a little bit dull. We should look into maybe getting a mentor, connecting with someone who might be already skilled or at a different level that we would want to be at, so that we can continue to learn. I've actually come up with a list of a couple things to help continue breaking the cycle of imposter syndrome and reframing the mindset around that perfect person that you think you should be, or maybe just highlighting how perfectionism shows up and the ways that we can continue to impact that little voice that causes imposter syndrome. So, number one, identify the triggers to that voice and challenge it. Whenever that little voice comes up and it says, look, you messed up here, you're not as good as you think you are, say, what about this person who made the same mistake and I think they're great? Or you messed up, and instead of saying, oh goodness, I messed up, I'm not good enough, say, you know what, you learn through experience. Experience means I'm doing something. Mistakes means I'm doing something. Challenge that voice. Remind yourself that you're doing your best and that you're great at it. Number two, when someone compliments you, take the compliment. When someone acknowledges you for doing something great, maybe someone went to an event that you were hosting, maybe someone heard a song that you put out, or someone read an article because you're writing, and they read this article that you put out and they complimented you, say thank you and be genuine in your thanks. Don't let this voice talk you out of receiving your praise. As a human being, we love to be praised. We love to be seen. We love to be acknowledged. So when others compliment you, say thank you and remind yourself that they're not just complimenting you, just from like a small bad place in them. They're complimenting you because they agree. They agree that you're great at what you do. Number three, connect with people that are ahead of you from where you want to be. So whether that's someone who is more knowledgeable in writing music, someone who's more knowledgeable in writing speeches, maybe It's someone who's a better dancer than you, a better teacher than you, someone who's a better writer than you. Maybe you don't have immediate access to some of these people, but definitely put yourself in a position where you can get access to what it is that they know. A lot of people that are successful, they put themselves out there. They tell their story. They give their skills away for free. Put yourself in those positions to be able to get mentorship from them. You want to do that because at some point or another, they're going to express how they got through different hard times. They're going to say, hey, this happened to me and I was able to overcome it like this. You want to put yourself in a almost a reflective mindset with this person because it'll help fuel you. So whenever that little voice shows up and you think that you're supposed to be perfect and you think that you're supposed to be just pristine in this way, you'll be able to realize and see this reflection from this person and say, you know what, it doesn't have to be that way because I already know that this person is successful in what they do and they've been through that and they have overcome it and I can too. Number 4, remember that failure doesn't mean you're an imposter. Actually, failing means that you're trying and that you're learning. Sometimes we'll make a mistake and say, I have to start from zero. I have to start from scratch. And that's actually not true. Whenever you make a mistake in doing something, it means when you start again that you're starting from experience. You've learned something. So you're not starting from zero. You're already ahead of where you think you were. Don't let a mistake reinforce the imposter syndrome voice because ultimately the imposter syndrome is just coming from a place of doubt that shouldn't exist. You don't want to give that voice any more fuel than it needs. You want to remind yourself that failing means you're trying and you're already ahead of the game just from doing and moving. Number 5, celebrate your wins. I know I said this previously, but you want to make sure that you acknowledge when you do something great. I don't mean like if you made an extra $50 at this event or you upped your prices in something, you celebrate and go spend $300 because you made an extra $50. No, I mean, pat yourself on the back. Say, you know what, you did great today. You know what, you did your best today. Acknowledge your wins. Celebrate them. Water them as if they're a seed, as if they're a plant, as if someone gave you flowers and you put them in your kitchen. And every morning you see them and you notice that every time you water them, they just grow more. More seeds start to grow. And if you don't water them as much, then maybe you don't have as many flowers. Maybe they start to dwindle down. So water your wins. Celebrate your wins. They are the color of life. It fuels the tanks and what it is that we need to do. And someone very dear to me says, no one does what you do, how you do it. So definitely celebrate those wins. Remember that you're unique and what you do, no one else does. In closing, please remember that everything that is alive, every being, every person, every, I'll say critter, seed, plant, whatever, is constantly evolving. And as things evolve, they go through periods of shedding and changing. And sometimes that comes with maybe feeling like you're not who you're supposed to be. You're not exempt from this. Embrace that evolving is a part of the growth, that it is to transform you into something new, like a butterfly. Repeat to yourself whenever that imposter voice creeps in, I'm just evolving. This is just for my evolution. I am just evolving. I am just evolving. Thank you for listening. Come back again next week for another episode of You the Boss podcast.